Here we go. It's the final leg of the 2023 Triple Crown, and Matt and I are giving you a way too early look at the Belmont Stakes. What's up, everybody? I'm Colin Sheehan with my colleague and partner in crime, Matthew DeSantis. Matt, you're done traveling. You went down to the Black Eyed Susans. You've won every stable duel contest there is this week. What else? So what else could you be doing? You're living high on life right now.
High on life, doing well. Had a great day at the Black Eyed Susan. Shout out to everybody who came up and said hi. Really appreciate that. And it was a great day out at the track at Pimlico on Friday. Certainly lovely weather and great races. Great story with Taxed, obviously winning that Black Eyed Susan. And yeah, had a little bit of luck in the stable duel at Monmouth, Assiniboia, Delaware Park. So, we're doing all right. We're heating up as the temperature heats up outside here on Trust the Profits. But more than anything, I'm just kind of puffing out my chest here on the network because, I was all over National Treasure. I don't know. The rest of you guys wanted a Triple Crown winner. I was trying to look reality in the face there. And, obviously had National Treasure up top in the Preakness, but excited to talk about the Belmont Stakes. And this is a test of champions. And I think everybody has their favorite kind of Belmont moments. Obviously, the 73 race with Secretariat, memorable, but so many memorable races, so much heartbreak that you guys outlined, you and El Hombre talked about in your kind of Triple Crown video you did last week as well. So a lot of great efforts and a lot of great memories, obviously, up at Belmont.
Yeah, and I would say, not to puff my chest out, the Belmont Stakes, I lick my chops because this is the one I'm best at. I've had my most luck at the Belmont. I'm probably 0 for whatever at the Kentucky Derby. I just continue to swing and miss on that. The Preakness is kind of like a hit or miss, and then the Belmont, I walk into the Belmont feeling good, and that's because I look for a certain type of runner that I've followed through the season, and I think I have who that's going to be this year. But before we can get to who we even like, and we'll let everyone know that we're taping this May 24th. So this is your way too early look at who we think the possible and probable starters are. Week of Belmont Stakes, we're going to come right back at you with coverage on post positions, who the actual field is, and we'll do our top pick and value pick at that time because we know you expect that from us, and we've actually been pretty damn good on that on the between our top picks and values as we've done these preps. So I see why you have so much success in capping the card, because if you just think of it that way, you usually end up doing pretty good. But let's take a look, at least for right now. As I said, this is May 25th. Who we have for a list so far, and there's a long list. And when you sent me this list, I was actually really excited because this is a great field. If this is what the field ends up being, the greens are the probables, the whites are the possibles that we got off of Horse Racing Nation, I assume is where you grab this information from. But let's start here looking at this list of out of the probables and possibles. Who can you kind of feel that is definitely going, and who do you have question marks on showing up to actually run the Belmont Stakes?
Yeah, I think out of the, I think it is important to break them down between the probables and possibles. I think if you look at the possibles, I would be really surprised if a horse like Arabian Lion showed up for Bob Baffert. I'd even be a little bit surprised if a horse like Arcangelo showed up for Jenna Antonucci, just because she's got a reputation of being a really good horse person and letting horses rest in between starts and making sure that you don't put the now ahead of the future of the horse. And after coming out of that Peter Pan, I'd just be surprised if she tried to run that horse back in a mile and a half, potentially put that horse on the bench the rest of the summer. I think that's horses focused on the Jim Dandy and the Travers potentially up at Saratoga. So I'd be a little surprised there. I could see a horse like Raised Cane or Reincarnate from that possible list end up in the field. From the probables list, that does look to be a pretty solidified group. I do think there's obviously some questions around Forte, just because obviously was veterinary scratch for the Kentucky Derby, and a lot of obviously the positive test from back at the Hopeful and all of that news story broke, and so there's just been a lot of controversy around him. And then I guess it does seem like National Treasure, after winning the Preakness, is going to go to the Belmont. And I would say the only other one that's a little bit interesting to me would be Red Route 1 coming out of that Preakness and now going to the Belmont. But people have pegged that horse as a Belmont horse since day one because he loves to come running late. The pushback that I always give is he needs pace. And there's not usually a lot of pace in the Belmont Stakes. And so I don't know if he's going to necessarily get the hot pace that he wants to run into. But I do think we expect to see hit shows, Sun Thunder, and Tapiture for sure.
And you have the Woody Stevens on the undercard as well. So when
Yep.
I looked at it, I thought Raise Cane and Arabian Lion, that might be a better
Yeah.
spot for them to show up, especially as we're going to go into this show and tell you all about what we look for when we look at the Belmont Stakes, because it is a mile and a half. It's the longest of the 3 Triple Crown races. So if distance is a question, remember, like Jack Christopher, the Stevens on the undercard ends up being more of a better target. And then Prove Worthy, you see on the right side of this list, a lot of names multiplied. So Pletcher's got 4 over there. You got 3 on the Baffert side. Is Pletcher going to want to run a horse like Prove Worthy, who just broke his maiden, into the teeth of some of these other ones? Now, of course, you always have to have that owner relationship of, hey, we just want to be at the Belmont,
Right.
and play that into your mind as well. But that's certainly something you need to take under consideration as far as when the field comes out and what the other options are to run at on Belmont Stakes Day.
Yeah, that's a great point. And certainly a horse like King's Barnes, you would figure might do better at something like the Woody Stevens in a way that Jack Christopher did too. I mean, it's a horse that has some speed and might benefit from a shorter distance, obviously. A lot of these other horses, though, you certainly look from that probables list. You would go, yeah, most of these horses are going to probably like the 12 furlongs, actually, or seem to get stronger as the races go on and the races get longer. So I think there's a lot of logic behind those horses that are probables. And then you're right. Does Bob Baffert, does Todd Pletcher, how many horses do they want in this type of a race? I think that's absolutely a big question to have. And, whether or not, obviously Reincarnate just coming back into Bob Baffert's barn. Obviously, Arabian Lion have been there back in his barn for a while. National Treasure, obviously, back for a little while also. But interestingly enough, only one Brad Cox horse, and that's Angel of Empire, who finished 3rd in the Derby. So, that was a trainer who we talked a lot about on the Derby trail. All these horses Brad Cox has, and even a horse like Bishop's Bay, who finished right behind Arcangelo in a really thrilling stretch duel in the Peter Ban, not listed here as either a probable or a possible. So Brad Cox looks like it's going to go all in with just Angel of Empire in this one.
Yeah, and on the Horse Racing Nation probables for the Woody Stevens, right now it's only Drew's Gold and Arabian Lion. And Drew's Gold's one of the horses that actually is 4 for 4, winning his last race at Belmont, going 6 furlongs. So those are the 2 that are only listed on the Woody Stevens when you go to the Horse Racing Nation and check that out. But that kind of gives us a sense of who we think will be in the field. But I want to circle back to the horse that we were also excited about going into the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
And was going to be your morning line favorite until was obviously scratched by the on-site veterinarians, and that is Forte, who has actually been working out at Belmont, breezed yesterday, and from all accounts is doing excellent. Irad actually drove up in order to do that workout yesterday morning. So at least it sounds like from this point, all systems are a go. I believe Forte will have the workout on Friday to clear him off of the vet's list in order to make him eligible, if I have that correctly. But my question to you, aside from workouts, and let's be honest, we talked about the workouts on our roundtable of how much do you put emphasis into them, and we all said, oh, nope. So I have to ask you, the expert Matt DeSantis, on a horse that when you hear Kentucky Derby morning is scratched with possible issues, how do you feel with that same horse? Although I think we both agree, one of the top, if not at the top echelon of this crop. How do you take that into your consideration when you're handicapping for the Belmont? Are you concerned that he needs one to come back from? Are you maybe thinking that it wasn't a big deal and the scratch was unfortunate for them, but he's all systems go? Where do you kind of play?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of factors to play into it. One is just looking at, obviously, his last race was that Florida Derby. So it'll be a little while from between those races. That's not necessarily the worst thing to have a really fresh horse coming into the Belmont. Traditionally, we've actually seen skipping the Preakness and going straight from the Derby to the Belmont is usually a winning move. And so giving horses 5 weeks, so in this case, it would be 8 or 9 weeks off. It's not like, or actually 10 weeks off. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Forte to be fresh. I think the more concerning part for Forte, and I agree with you, it looks like he's great, all systems are go, is he missed a few weeks of working out. and now you're going to go 12 furlongs. And so I think there's might be a question about conditioning, is just how well conditioned is he to go a distance that they will never be asked to go again. And I think that's a really important thing to always stress, which is these are horses that are, so many of them are pointed towards the Kentucky Derby, 10 furlongs, mile and a quarter. And then you run the Preakness, which is almost the same distance, mile and 3/16. And then you go to this monster up at Big Sandy and you go a mile and a half at 12 furlongs. And these horses will never run that distance again. And so I think there's some reservation about that. I think there's also some reservation about his pedigree, quite frankly, that does a violence horse want to get a mile and a half? And I mean, there were a lot of questions people were asking about the Derby as it related to Forte's pedigree. And I think those voices are probably only going to be amplified here, talking about him in the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah, I'll skip ahead. We're going to talk about this later, but while you're on the topic, we might as well look at the fact that this race is a mile and a half, and pedigree is certainly something that I actually rely more on, I think, pedigree in the Belmont than I do in the Kentucky Derby, just personally. And when you look at this list, so we've put the list of horses on the left there. The middle is the sire of the horses, and then on the right we have average winning distance of the sire, and the 10 or longer furlong winning percentage of those sires as well. So what we can kind of see here is just exactly what you mentioned, which Forte, Violence on the top, the average winning distance is 6.6. When you skip down to those possibles, Raise Cane is 6.6 and Arabian Lion is 6.6. And that's kind of where I started to think about, well, does the Woody Stevens tend to make more sense for them? We kind of know Forte is going with the Belmont. They've been very vocal in what their intentions are. Is there any other sires or percentages or winning distances that you see on this list that kind of pops out to you?
Well, obviously Tapit pops out just because he's been a champion sire for the Belmont 4 times in the last 9 runnings of a mile and a half. Obviously, the year that 'Tis the Law, that was a shortened race, and so I kind of often, no disrespect to 'Tis the Law, but I just usually discount that race because it was at a different distance. And from an analysis standpoint, obviously you've had 4 Tapits in the last 9 years that this was run at 12 furlongs. So anytime you see that and you see Tapiture, come on. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to see a horse like that. Obviously, you see another horse, you see a horse like Quality Road for National Treasure. I think we think of National Treasure as a front-running horse, and he certainly is. But that average winning distance is 7.4 furlongs is one of the best that you can see in the field, actually, and has a comparable winning percentage at 10 plus furlongs as Tapit does in terms of his progeny. And then the number that really, I'll be honest, pops off the screen is both Prove Worthy with Curlin, and you kind of understand maybe why they're interested in pursuing the Belmont, because Curlins can run all day, and Curlins are this one pedigree that can, I think, compete with Tapit in terms of distance. And then Arrogate and Archangelo at 7.7. Arrogate doesn't have the biggest win percentage, although I should say a ton of second and thirds, but 7.7 average winning distance is just insane for a sire like Arrogate, who obviously we've lost too soon. But it was one of those where, you can certainly see why some people are interested in Archangelo. I just don't see him going to the Belmont. I see him going to Saratoga instead because of, I think, a trainer intent more than anything else. But those are ones that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, no, I'll mention one that you didn't mention that sticks out to me is Kingsbarns with Uncle Mo at 16% winning percentage. Remember, Kingsbarns won the Louisiana Derby, which is one of the few preps that was at a mile and a 3/16. So at least going back to March, the longest race of the longest prep race that there was. Remember, Kingsbarn got out and led them around the track going wire to wire. So the 16% and the 7.5 is nothing to sneeze at either. I'll dive right into who you mentioned, which is Tapiture, because I think that is the type of horse that just attracts me to Belmont.
Sure.
And El Hombre was all over Tapiture early and long and often, and I never, we teased him, but I never got on him because I think in the back of my head I knew that I was going to be coming back around here when we hit June and going to that well for Tapiture. So if he thinks I got on him for that, he should be warned that is very little on what I can bring to the table when I'm going to start teasing you for a horse that you don't like, because I think the way that Tapiture runs late and sets up really, really well. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Mo Donegal. Remember, Mo Donegal got the inside post at the Derby. Tapiture got the 5-hole in the Derby this year, which obviously caused a little bit of problems for Tapiture. Still ran well, and that's not going to lie. That's kind of that horse that I have on my mind. Of this is the race that sets up really nicely for Tapiture.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yes, I gave El Hombre maybe a harder time than anybody else in the network about his love of Tapiture, and I'll just say my boy Derma beat Tapiture in the Kentucky Derby, but that our boy, by one spot. But what I will say about Tapiture is I always was very careful when I either wrote about the race, the Kentucky Derby, or when I talked about it. I always want to make a point. Tapiture might be the most talented horse in this crop. Like that was never the question. And that was never, I never sat there and said, I don't think Tapiture is very, there's a huge difference between saying, I don't think a horse is very good and I don't think this horse is going to win this race. Those are two very different discussions to have. I think Tapiture is an excellent horse. I just didn't think he was going to win the Kentucky Derby. And I didn't think he was a very good bet in the Kentucky Derby. I think he's an outstanding bet at whatever price you can get in the Belmont Stakes. Because he's going to be rested, obviously coming off that Derby to Belmont layoff that we've seen be so successful over the last decade. And when you see, unlike a horse like Red Route 1, where you see it really is pace dependent, I think so much for him. On Tapiture, him coming from the back, it's never about pace. It's about pedigree with him. He just starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger as these races go. And that stride keeps getting longer as everybody else's shortens up. And he just gobbles up more ground late. And it's not about that he's, everybody else is fatiguing and, just, they've worn themselves out going 46-1 in the opening half. Like he's just stronger late. And I think that's what makes him such a formidable horse for the Belmont.
And it's also trip, right? Trip was what we worried about Tapiture and
absolutely.
breaking out of the gate. And that's where, in a 20-horse field at the Derby, I'm a little less likely to be forgiving of that than hopefully figures it out going when you go into the Belmont and has the extra distance of the race to make up for whatever he screws up at the beginning when he has that talent that you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to be dealing with, listen, in all likelihood, a much smaller field. I mean, we're going to be looking at maybe 10 horses, I would imagine, at most in this field. And navigating a trip from 10 horses as opposed to 20, it makes all the difference in the world. And, I think he'll be able to easily get that. I mean, the one slight concern that we still have with Tapiture is he does like to be out in the clear wide. And obviously, if you're going 12 furlongs, going wide the whole way is probably not ideal, especially around those big, huge sweeping turns at Belmont. But otherwise, he makes a ton of sense in this spot, especially when you look at the rest of the probables. I mean, maybe a horse like Angel of Empire, but again, you look at that classic Empire pedigree and, granted, very, very young, but 0 for 5, first time, the first 5 progeny who attempted that 1.25 miles or more haven't won. So we'll see.
We'll relink at the end of this show the card for the Tapiture breakdown I did that goes into exactly what you just talked about, which is how he liked to be wide. I don't have the Kentucky Derby replay on that because I did it before the Kentucky Derby, but we'll throw that up there for you so you all can go back and see what Matt's talking about how when this horse is in the clear, he performs a lot better, and that is where he likes to be, and he's been purposely brought into the clear in situations in the races that he has been in. So let's go back to your boy Bob Baffert, who ran into the Preakness with National Treasure and was your victor in the second leg of the Triple Crown. And what I want to talk to you about is the fact that Bob Baffert is back, and you were on him with National Treasure because of that pace setup, but now you maybe are adding in Reincarnate and Arabian Lion. So how are we feeling not only about National Treasure's return, but also the fact that you may have, which to me is comical, all this talk about what's happened. I shouldn't say comical, but it is in a way in my dark humor of Bob Baffert coming in and winning the second and third legs of the Triple Crown the second year that he's not allowed to run in the Kentucky Derby.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. So with National Treasure, it's interesting. It's just such an unprecedented position for a horse to be in, not to be eligible to run in the Kentucky Derby in the case of National Treasure because he didn't qualify. Even though he was in Tim Yakteen's barn, he just, he scratched out of the San Felipe the day of, so he didn't earn any points that day, and then he finished 4th in the Santa Anita Derby, and so not eligible to run in the Derby, comes back to win the Preakness, and now is going to go to the Belmont. I mean, you just don't see that kind of, I'm going to run the second 2 legs of the Triple Crown very often. So there's just not a lot of historical precedents to go back and go, well, what's the win percentage of horses that run the second 2 legs crown, sort of a thing. Usually it's the first 2 legs, not the second 2. So I'm not huge on his chances. I actually am planning on doing a video that looks at like maybe the last 20 years, maybe since 2000, looking at whether or not horses can wire the field at the Belmont and kind of the success of wiring the field and kind of what sort of pace pressure horses that are up on the lead typically face in the Belmont Stakes. But you bring up a great point. Is Reincarnate going to be in there? Is King's Barnes going to potentially be in there? Who else is going to be there to potentially press the pace? Now, if we're just going based off of that green list and go, that's who's going to be in the race, then honestly, things set up pretty nicely for National Treasure because there's no other speed in the race. So he might be able to walk the dog up front again. And we looked at that quality road pedigree to suggest that, he's got the really nice average winning distance. He's got a good winning percentage at 10 plus furlongs. So, I think that there's an interesting narrative there, and it just depends on whether or not any of those faster horses, like a King's Barnes, like a Reincarnate, like an Arabian Lion, end up coming into this Belmont field rather than foregoing that and going to the Woody Stevens or just going somewhere else. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't have as strong of a feeling about National Treasure in the Belmont, certainly, than I did in the Preakness, though.
I feel like Hit Show would be some early pace presence more so than Coffee with Chris was, in that if you're just looking at that top green, I feel like Hit Show would be the one that would press this a little bit harder. Then you're dealing with the talent of Forte as well. So it would be a much taller task for National Treasure, even if you think he would be low on speed on the front ends, to try and pull off the Belmont as it was considered in the Preakness.
And you figure Forte would be, if it's just the green, again, if we're just looking at the probables, you'd figure Forte would actually sit probably a similar trip to Mage, like sitting third probably in that sort of a scenario. So he's going to be a little bit closer. Whereas, Sun Thunder, Tapiture, Red Route 1, and Angel of Empire, where they're going to be. They're going to be in the back. And so Forte, you'd figure, is going to be a little bit more forwardly placed, and Hit Show would be more forwardly placed too, for sure. But I don't know if Hit Show necessarily wants the lead. And so National Treasure, if Johnny V just guns it, you say, well, Hit Show is going to provide more pace pressure than Coffee with Chris, probably, but at what cost? And at what cost do you kind of potentially wear at your own horse? I mean, this is always the calculus, right? Every jockey has, of like, how much pressure do you put on the lead horse, and knowing that also wears out your horse a little bit, and you have less coming for home because you've been putting pressure. But it's a conundrum that they're going to have to deal with depending on how this race absolutely ends up drawing in terms of pace.
Yeah, and I mentioned Tapiture. I'm also not going to sleep on Angel of Empire. I think he was closing really nicely in the Kentucky Derby, and hopefully that extra distance does well for Angel of Empire as well. I forgot to plug when we were talking about Pedigree, our new colleague, Jessica Tugwell. So she'll be coming out with a long, in-depth look at the pedigree of the horses once we know the field. So again, this is a real early look at the 2023 Belmont Stakes, and Jessica Tugwell will give us the full pedigree analysis. She does such a superb job on that. If you haven't seen her show yet, please check that out. Before we go, Matt, we're not going to do top pick, value pick, because we don't know the field and it's way too early to try and do that. But I wanted to ask you, of this list, and we'll consider this whole list the field, who's the horse that maybe is going to get a little bit of who's going to be slept on, who's not going to get enough attention that really you should be considering, maybe one that you want to pay attention to over the next 3 weeks, as we'll play it kind of like a value play, as a longer shot horse that's not named Forte or Tapiture.
There's two that come to mind. I'll give you one from each list. One, I would be interested to see Proof Worthy. We talked about that Curlin pedigree. That might be the reason why or maybe thinking maybe a little bit more strongly about the Belmont, despite this horse just breaking its maiden. And the other one, I'll be honest, is Hit Show. That's a horse that I think, ran pretty well at the Kentucky Derby, all things considered, for Belmont. And obviously, finished second up in New York at Aqueduct. Now, granted, not Belmont, but did well up in that New York circuit earlier this year. And I think is a capable horse, and one that I think is like I said, it definitely has a shot. And maybe is Hit Show actually a Brad Cox horse? Do I have that wrong?
No, it is.
Okay, yeah. So but that's one that I would probably consider as a horse that I'm interested in looking at the works and kind of maybe dissecting the pace and when it starts to break down.
Very good. You come out with where are you going for capping the card this week?
So I am going to opening day. I'm not actually going there. Capping the card is going to opening day at Canterbury Park up in Minnesota, and I will be joined by Canterbury Park's own Angela Herman. She is their analyst up there, and so she's going to be joining me for capping the card, and that should be a lot of fun. We have a lot of opening days at smaller tracks. Cinnaboya just this past Monday, Delaware Park on Thursday or on Wednesday, I should say. You got Canterbury opening up on Saturday over Memorial Day weekend. So that's a lot of fun. So that's where I'll be headed. And that video is dropping Friday. And where are we going on doubling down?
I'm not totally decided yet. Probably maybe look at Memorial Day. There's a lot of good racing on Memorial Day. And I'm thinking of maybe switching it up and doing some pick threes, or maybe, dare I say, pick four. We're going to double down on doubling down. So make it a pick four. We haven't decided yet. We're playing with some ideas. I'd love to hear from viewers in the comments of what it is that you guys are looking for. We do this based on what we hear as good feedback. We pay attention to it. We listen to it. We love talking about this stuff. So we're more than happy to try out different things. We had a huge success with the live Assiniboia Downs on Monday night. Great job by Matt. We're going to have that awesome. Continuing going forward and have different guests on. So we've got you covered. We're not stopping even because Mage lost or because the Triple Crown's drying up. We're talking about doing, our chat's been on fire with ideas of maybe we're going to do some Royal Ascot coverage.
Oh, we are. There's no maybe we're doing Royal Ascot. We are doing Royal Ascot. I'm going to get a top hat. We're going to do big time early morning. Get your mimosas ready. 6 a.m. I'm going to be talking about what type of Ascot King Charles is showing up in. What dress is Camilla going to be wearing? We're going to do all that. We're going to talk about Wesley Ward horses who blow the brake, and we're going to be talking about Graham Morrison horses who are ready to roll. But no, we're going to have a lot of fun with Royal Ascot. Always one of the fun, I think, moments for a lot of us American racing fans to kind of get a peek over there and to see what's going on over on the other side of the pond.
And it's Belmont Stakes, it's Royal Ascot, and then it's my favorite time of the season, which is Saratoga. So we're coming to Saratoga this year. So all you viewers, we will be out and about. We'll maybe set up some live stuff and do some meet and greets, and be on the lookout for us tearing up Saratoga Springs. It's the one weekend of the year that I get to let loose. So watch out. Watch out. Maybe I'll get recognized out this year, and that'll be fun. So that's it for this episode. This is the Belmont Stakes first look at the field. Stay tuned as we get closer. We'll have plenty of more coverage for you. And until next time, Matt,
it's now post time.